Welcome back. The podcast used to be called Brokat i Cycki. I think as of today, I'm officially going to rename it Colette Without Regrets. So if you were following Brokat i Cycki, great, welcome back. It's now Colette Without Regrets. I am Colette de la Creme, and today we're going to talk about corsets and bodices. I'm actually going to try to make sure that we have sort of a good amount of space to show everything. So there was a period of time when I was wearing this corset every single day as a foundation garment. And I wore this under my very 50s silhouettes. I used to have dresses and skirts, some of which I did leave in the US when I came. And so I would wear this corset underneath. It basically goes on like this. I'm just going to do it quickly without buttoning it. And you pull it in the back, and that's going to give you the shape that you want. The reason that this corset is perfect for me to wear every day, and I've been able to wear this up to about 16 hours per day. I used to wear it to work when I was working, so I would wear it pretty much like 5 days a week. And after about 3 or 4 months, I finally started to get a little bit of like back pain. So even though I do a lot of yoga, after about 3 or 4 months, I stopped actually wanting to wear this every single day. And then I kind of would alternate it and wear it every, however often I felt like it. And I just started wearing different things that were like baggier like this so that I could at least be comfortable. But when I want to go somewhere, I'll still go ahead and put this on and put on a cute dress over it. Just because the body shape that I was born with irritates the fuck out of me, and I want to fix it and make it into the thing that I want it to be. And the easiest, cheapest, and fastest way for that to happen for me is with a corset. So this is made out of mesh. And this mesh is actually it's not really built to stand up to long-term wear and tear. I've actually had to patch this where the boning is poking a hole through the bottom edge of it several times. It looks like I have to patch it once again because the boning is starting to peek through it. This corset I use underneath my Aurora Act, which is called Basket Case. I use it as one of my inner layers. Usually I keep this one in the closet since it is part of just my regular day wear. So we're gonna put that one back. Now that's the second version that I have of that particular corset. So I did have one before and it completely fell apart. I was patching it for a while until it completely fell apart. And I used the back panel of the first one that I bought to extend this corset, which I use in my Shining Act. So I have like a teddy that doesn't come off in my Shining Act. That was the first act that I ever did. At that time, I wasn't really sure that I wanted to show my belly. I wasn't sure how much like skin I wanted to show on stage. Once you get to the point where you no longer care about what your skin and body looks like, then you can show it because you kind of don't care anyway. And it's sad to say something like that, but like once you no longer care, then you can show anything you fucking want. So that's kind of the way that I felt about it. But when I did this very first act, I kind of like still cared about what people were gonna think about like my skin, right? My perimenopausal skin. And so at that point I had this corset underneath, and then I had a teddy on underneath that, and so that act sort of has that. I have also done that act one time when I couldn't find this corset. I have also done that act with this. I'll show this one in a second, and it doesn't give the same silhouette, and it does not give the same look that I wanted. And it actually had like an ugly sort of puffiness right around the top area that I didn't like. It looked very sort of like, I looked like Sasquatch, like bumbling around in the woods. And I feel like when I wear this corset, I look less like Sasquatch bumbling around in the woods. So this one pisses me off a whole lot less, and this is for the Shining Act. I'm not really sure what happened. I think because they didn't have the corset in the size that I actually needed. This one I ended up buying in a much smaller size, and I didn't realize how much smaller it was going to be, so when I first got it, it didn't fit. And because I had one corset that was already ruined, I was able to salvage the back panel, and I simply made an extension out of the back panel. So I rescued the back panel of the first one of these mesh corsets I had. I sewed it by hand onto the back panel of this, and I thereby was able to create an extension for this corset. So this corset, I also wear this one with my Jilted Bride Act. The red doesn't bother with the Jilted Bride Act because I have a lot of hot pink accents in that, and so I kind of feel like it sort of just goes along with it. And then with the other act, with the Shining Act, you never get to see it at all, and it's basically just there to sort of act as a foundation garment. Every corset that you buy is going to give you a different shape. Every corset that you buy, whether it's an underbust or an overbust corset, is going to also be a different length. And so depending on the way that your body is shaped, whether you're a bit more of a Sasquatch like me, and that doesn't mean that we don't love Sasquatch. I'm sure somebody out there loves Sasquatch. But if that's the kind of look and shape that you have, then you may want to think about where the bottom edge of the corset ends. I generally like it to end at or slightly above the fattest part of the underbelly, just because that usually seems to make kind of the most harmonious or most pleasing sort of, what do you want to call it, look, I guess. But if you do decide to buy a longer corset, you should kind of be aware of what your bottom half is doing. Meaning, okay, so if you want like to extend the hips, but you don't have wide hips or you don't have a big bottom, then it's gonna look kind of empty underneath unless you stuff a costume element underneath there and then you take off the corset and then some aspect of the costume element, right? So it's important in burlesque, since we're mostly going to have a corset on stage in order to then be able to take it off, it's important to think about the order in which it comes off, right? It's important to think about at what point in your act the corset's going to come off. You want to practice with it really well ahead of time so that you know how to take it off, whether you want to fumble with this, whether you want to do it like this. However, I mean, you're going to have to open it from the front anyway, so however you want to do it, make sure that you practice with it really well. And make sure that you know the order of the elements that come off after the corset comes off and before the corset comes off. So the corsets that kind of are a little bit longer in the hip area and that kind of give like a little bit of a different silhouette in that sort of hip area are going to be this one. This used to be a daily corset that I wore as well. Pretty much like I could wear this up to about 14, 16 hours a day because it was fairly comfortable. So this used to also just be like a daily wear, sort of regular kind of corset. I think that's why I stopped wearing it, because the boning eventually broke. Did it? Something happened with the boning. Yeah, okay, so the boning in the front is broken. Because like the belly fat, when you sit down over time, over like many, many months, it broke. And there's a metal bone, a metal stay in here. But that one did break. So this is more of a spare corset or like a backup corset. All my corsets are pretty much under bust. I've never had an over bust corset that fits. And obviously if you're putting it on, you loosen it in the back. Then you can put it on, you can tighten it, and then, or you can close it, and then you can sort of tighten it. So you're starting to get like a sense of like how different it's gonna fucking look with each style. It's gonna get a bit of a different look. And this is one that I use for my Lolita act. This corset is the longest one that I have. All of these corsets were under $100. Most of them were under, I want to say most of them were under like 70. But in any case, you just have to hunt around and look around. I tend to get most of my corsets from truecorset.com. So this one, the mesh one, and then this one, which is a different type of mesh, and this one, these are all from truecorset.com. Their corsets are very affordable, but if you tend to use them a lot, the way that I do, they can break. I'm sure every corset can, and so you do have to be careful like how much wear and tear you put on the thing. So this is a burgundy corset that I purchased years ago from True Corset, and I did the hand rhinestoning on it myself. This is about 50 hours of work with the hand rhinestoning. This part is a type of sewing that I did with sequins and with a type of metallic yarn. And the rest is hand rhinestone. You can see a couple of the rhinestones have fallen off and probably need to be repaired. I tend to be fairly lazy, and I know that nobody's ever going to see that, even if you're in the front row, so I tend to just not bother. But if it annoys me enough, I'll eventually repair it. So this one fits fairly well as well. I'm not going to get into them at this point, but you can sort of see like what they look like. That's what it looks like from the back. Okay. And corsets, of course, change your posture very much when you're on stage, as do any type of heels. So that's another thing to consider. How comfortable are you? We already talked about shoes in a prior episode, or rather, Pixie and Frey and I did talk about shoes in a prior episode, so you can actually look that up and watch that if you wish. And what else? This is a bodice that's kind of made to look like a corset. I was very, very careful when I purchased this because I wanted a certain look. This is for my Aurora act. I wanted a certain look with this. So if I had purchased one that was too large, they would have made it extra long in the front, which was not a look that I wanted. I basically just wanted this kind of look. Like I didn't want the bottom edge of the corset to be of the bodice to be any longer than that. So actually the side seam comes super way in the front on this one, just the way that it fits me. It's perfect actually because I don't have to reach over to the side to unzip it. I'm reaching partly in the front, so actually it works out in my favor. And then you can see in the back that this has like a much wider sort of an opening. But because you generally don't want to have your back to the audience too much unless it's really a part of your act, and this is one of the first things that I take off on stage. I think it's like the first thing actually that I take off on stage. So the audience isn't necessarily going to see how wide the back is. And even if you can't see that, it's Princess Aurora and she's a peasant girl, so we're also assuming that she's maybe not going to get fitted at a corset maker. She kind of just has, you know, she's using what she has on hand or what she can scrounge up for herself because she lives in the woods, not dissimilar to my situation. Although the woods are not as close by as they used to be the last time that I was living in Gdańsk, but that's okay. So so this one, when I wear this one, I have that red mesh corset underneath it as a different layer to give it additional, to give it body because of the way that my body is constructed, because of my belly fat and my back fat. If I attempted to wear this without an actual corset for stability underneath, it would not look good, and it probably wouldn't zip up no matter how wide I made the laces in the back. It probably just wouldn't zip up at all. This is only able to zip up because there's an actual foundation corset underneath it. But it works for the act, right? Again, you know, this thing was like under $30. Most of the things that I have, I try to get as cheaply as possible, but you still want them to last for some amount of time, right? This is something that I got, which is under 40 bucks. It looks a bit wrinkled now. I am an adult Disney fan, so I did wear this to Disneyland. I was trying to do an Aurora costume, but then after that particular trip to Disneyland, since people thought that I was a pirate, I decided to change the costume, and I decided to do a pirate Princess Aurora version of the costume. So I'm just using some of the elements that I have from the basket case act. So if I ever go to Paris Disneyland, if money ever favors me, and if I'm ever able to do that with my BFF, then I probably will wear my pirate Princess Aurora costume, and that has to do, that is pretty much, this is the top part of that. Since I wanted, for this particular costume, I wanted something that didn't necessarily look super slutty, I didn't want to be like hooker Princess Aurora pirate. I just sort of wanted it to be like peasant girl pirate, like pirate peasant girl. And so it kind of like took a while of looking before I found something that was kind of like a cute little bodice. It was very simple. And this is like under $40. And even though this was the largest size that this particular maker had, it was still too narrow in the back for me. And leather does stretch, but it wasn't able to stretch all the way around my midsection the way that it needed to. So rather than being able to zip it up in the front, I took a shoelace. For this one, I took a shoelace and I made little loops out of it. I sewed the loops to the lining in the very, very back. I did that on both sides, and then I took a second shoelace and I simply threaded it through. So once again, it has kind of like that homemade Aurora look. She's a peasant, she's kind of using what she has. But also with Aurora, the only thing is that of course you can see from far away, maybe not so much, but you can see the zipper a little bit, but not so much. Probably from far away you can't really see it that much. So you do get that sort of like look of the lacing in the back. And again, I do wear a corset underneath this one. So you can either use, so for myself, I would either use the red mesh corset, which I've already showed, or I would use the turquoise one. I would say that the red mesh one is more comfortable and better for like a hot day because it's mesh and so it breathes a bit more. Whereas the turquoise one is better for like a winter type of situation just because it's basically like a heavy twill, and the lining is a heavy twill, whereas the one that's mesh is like breathable mesh. And so you do look a bit like a ham at the end of 14 to 16 hours, because when you take that off, you're kind of like a canned ham a little bit, for anybody who remembers those. Hopefully nobody's still eating that, but you know, you never know. All right, so is there anything else that I really wanted to say about it? This has a problem. Because it doesn't stay on. It does not cover the bust area, so what I had to do was sew other shoelaces on it in order to be able to tie it around the neck, just to keep this part from slipping. So what really needs to happen with this is it should have metal boning inside of it, but it doesn't because it was under 40 bucks. So even though I purchased this, there was a relatively plus size model on the site. If you're realistically walking and sitting, standing and walking, as somebody so famously said on The Simpsons, if you're really using it, then the leather is going to slouch, it's going to bunch up around you, and I literally walked around the whole day like pulling it up, even with these shoelaces that I had attached to it. Although there's a better chance of it staying on when you have an actual corset underneath it to provide the structure and the foundation. So yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to say. I'm not the kind of person who does burlesque because I felt that I was so sexy that I needed everybody in the world to see how sexy I was. I was the kind of person who did burlesque because I no longer gave a fuck about how ugly I felt and what people thought of my perceived ugliness. I just wanted to be fun, and I wanted to be funny, I wanted it to be wonderful, and that's why I do burlesque, not because I need people to sit there and fucking look at somebody who's naked who's almost 50. No, it's for me. It's because I need to express myself without murdering anybody, without taking a brick and punching somebody's face in. So that's my way of doing that. So I probably would be a murderer if I weren't a burlesque performer, which is why I always loved Tourette's Without Regrets. It's a shame that Jamie D. Wolf never wanted to work with me. Oh well. Oh well. Every bitch is gonna die and end up in the fucking ground, and that's where we're all headed. Every bitch is headed that way. So enjoy what little remains of your life you can while you can. The world is clearly doing something fucked up like always, and in the meantime, there's burlesque.